The next morning, in the kitchen. Light filters through the crack in the kitchen door as I open it, bathing the hallway in a golden glow, and I linger in its warmth for a moment before heading inside the kitchen. I blink a few times to find it empty, except for Farah, who smiles at me. Where is everyone? I ask, heading towards the table to take a seat. Out. She scoots her chair closer. We've been spoiled with time alone. You're not disappointed it's just me, are you? Hmm. No, I give a shake of my head, as though the simple answer isn't enough. Of course not. How long are they out for? He lifts one shoulder into an uncertain shrug. Not much longer, I expect. They went to check the parameter, but I didn't want you to wake up to an empty house. I slide my fingers over hers on the table as happiness flutters in my stomach. Thank you for thinking of me. That's all I seem to be able to do lately, babe, she replies with a soft laugh. We both flinch as Farah's phone begins ringing out a modern tune that fills the entire room. She presses the button and answers it in a lightning quick motion. The call is short, Farah slipping her phone back into her pocket after only a few seconds. Damn, dinner's on our way home already. She glances over me in quick examination. At least I've got time to get you something yummy to start your day. She's sped over to the counters before I can even make a reply. You're good with toast, right? Because that's about the limit of my cooking skills. A smile catches me. That'll be great, thanks. She pops a couple of pieces into the toaster and turns back around to lean against the counter and face me. I can't believe how domestic we've become. You've all been together a long time, haven't you? Didn't you eat breakfast together usually? I arch a brow. Well, drink breakfast together, I suppose. She grins at my correction. Not really. We lived at whatever facility we were assigned to, and even when we stayed together somewhere a long time, we usually just got on with things. I've missed it. My brows shift together. You've missed it? Sure. The others may not have done this in centuries, but it was only a few years ago that I still had a family. Her gaze plummets to the floor as she shifts on the spot. Mom, anyway. I swallow hard, the memory of what Farah told me about her mother and what happened hitting me like a physical blow. Hard enough it makes my chest ache for her. Standing, I move to her side and slip my hand into hers. You did things like this together? The prompt towards a happier memory seems to bring some of the light back into her expression. I didn't exactly make her toast, but we nearly always had meals together. It was just the two of us, but we were a family. I shift a little closer to her, an invitation for if she wants to keep talking, which she eagerly accepts. She tried so hard to teach me how to cook. To teach me a lot of things, actually, but I wasn't like her. I was a vampire, not a witch. I didn't need to eat like her to survive, so why bother learning to cook? I didn't need survival skills when I would just, survive. A heavy breath washes out of her. I hated it at the time, but now they're some of my favorite memories. I open my mouth to form some kind of reply to such heavy memories when the toaster springs up and almost gives me a heart attack. Farah grabs for the interruption. I suppose I have to look after this family now, huh? She turns away, apparently hoping I didn't see the shine of tears in her eyes. Now what do you want on this toast to make it less dry and unappealing? Hmm. Hmm. Well, I don't know what to say because I don't like any of these options. I dislike all of them. Um, so what do I do? Hmm. I mean, ideally, I'd like to say jam. I don't know, an actual answer to a question. Um, this is not true, but it's the only actual answer to the question, which is annoying. Um, I really do not want to choose any of these. Whatever, we'll do that. My chest aches with a hollowness for her. My throat is too tight to speak, so instead I simply reach forwards to draw her into a hug. There's no hesitation in her response as she wraps her arms around me. Her body shudders with a heavy breath. I don't say anything. That's not what she needs right now. Well, she needs an answer to what to put on the toast, damn it. I'm simply there until she's ready. It's a long while before her breathing calms and she draws away. She gazes at me with a soft smile, cupping my cheek. Thanks. I'm here whenever you need another, I offer. And you won't be far seeing as you're staying with us, she says, a sudden brightness to her words, as well as a need to change the subject. She turns back to fiddle with preparing the toast. It must be a million times better staying here than in that cramped apartment of yours. I love my apartment and all of the water that's in there. Um, hmm. Sure. Cramped? I give a faux gasp as I stutter the word before holding a hand to my wounded heart. It has one whole bedroom, I'll have you know. She blinks before tapping her lips to hold back a laugh. One bedroom? Well, I have been proven wrong. Does it have a bathroom too? I tilt my head with a wince. Half of one. She doesn't hold back the laughter anymore, and neither do I. Honestly, Jules, I'm seriously glad you're here, she says through her lingering chuckles. Though mostly just for my sake. I sidle closer until our sides are pressed together. I'm glad I'm here too. The kitchen door suddenly swings open, and the rest of Unit Bravo trudge inside, looking a lot less energized than Farah. Tough patrol? I ask, glancing over their slightly muddied clothing and windswept hair. We got sight of a trapper group, but they... Ava grinds her teeth together as though she just can't force out whatever admission she has to make next. They got away. Morgan finishes with much less concern, stalking to one side and leaning against the counter with a sharp breath. Hmm. I push myself to a stand and look over them all with a concerned frown. Did any of you get hurt? No, we're all fine. It was just aggravating to lose them when we... Nat licks at her lower lip before chewing at it. We shouldn't have. You think something else was involved? I ask with a tilt of my head. The three who were out on patrol glance between each other before Ava meets my eye with a stern stare, which is answer enough. It seems the trappers are upping their game for our comments, but the joking in it falls flat as Worry edges her comment. Nat suddenly shakes her head and steps into the center of the group. That's enough of that. We've done what we could, and we'll deal with the rest later. Her gaze flicks up to the mahogany wall clock. Long past time for breakfast. There's a slight grumble from Ava and Morgan, but eventually we all fall into rhythm to get breakfast set up. Farah finishing off my toast with my preferred topping and handing it to me. As we settle down at the table, my body relaxes into what has become a routine, everyday scene. Listening to Ava and Nat talk about work, Morgan focusing on her drink, and Farah happily throwing in comments when she can. And I realize how safe I suddenly feel, how wanted I feel, how happy I feel. I almost laugh at the thought that this odd group of vampires is providing me with the stability and family I've been lacking for so long. Speaking of family, my phone buzzes on the table with a sudden text from my mother. What's wrong, babe? Farah asks, scooting her chair closer to mine with a concerned glance. I take my cell from the table and slip it into my pocket. It's just a text from my mother. She's on her way over. My stomach clenches at the next words. Apparently the meeting with the chamber is happening today. Farah blinks a few times in surprise before blowing out a sharp breath. It didn't exactly give you much time to prep, did they? That's probably the point, Morgan sneers. I better go get ready. The leaden weight of reluctance sitting inside of me sounds through my heavy words. As I stand, Farah reaches out and takes my hand, squeezing it gently. You're gonna do great, babe. I smile, the weight melting away with a confident grin. I head out of the room, the vampire surprisingly quiet as I go, which only rattles my nerves further. Outside the warehouse at the perimeter fence, my mother is already waiting for me at the wire gate. I press my card to the scanner and wait for the wire door to swing open before stepping through and making my way to the large gleaming SUV. She leans down to look at me through the open window of the car. You ready to leave? Yeah, I think that's the most realistic. Yeah, I mumble, climbing into the passenger seat and settling in with a heavy sigh. Let's get this over with. She gives a nod of understanding, saying nothing more before she drives away. We're down the forest track and onto the roads before long. I rest my elbow against the slight sill of the window and place my chin in my hand, watching Wayhaven speed past me in a blur of green and brown. There's so much about this town that I know like the back of my hand. It's still strange to think there's so much more buried here I wasn't even aware of. Just how many supernaturals frequent these familiar woods? How many are neighbors, people I grew up with? And most are protected by the agency, governed by this enigmatic collection of people called the Chamber, who seem to have taken a particular interest in me. I'm still not sure if the attention will be a good thing or not. Something on your mind? Rebecca asks, ripping the thoughts away. I turn away from the familiar sight of the forest bordering the town and look to her. I was just wondering why they want to meet me, I admit. She keeps her eyes focused on the winding road, even though she likely knows these roads even better than I do. I'm no longer privy to their motivations. No longer? Interrupt with a frown. You mean you were? Her fingers grip the steering wheel tighter as she stares ahead, her eyes narrowed. I mean, I don't know the particulars of why they want to meet you now. I'm sure it's just because you're... She glances to me with a roll of her lips. A unique asset to the agency. You aren't exactly the usual agent we get. Hmm, sure. I glance back out of the window, figuring it's as good as an explanation as any. Suppose that makes sense. Neither of us can guess until you get there, but I'm sure it's nothing to worry over. She says the words in her usual cool calm, but still, there's an underlying tension to them that has a knot forming in my stomach. So, what should I know about them before I go in? I ask before silence fills the car. Her body relaxes against her seat at the question, seeming much more comfortable now that she's in work mode. The chamber is usually made up of 5 people, chosen for their exceptional abilities as well as the service they've provided to the agency. Nothing unusual so far. Currently, there is only one human serving in the chamber, she continues. I glance to her. Are there more usually? A spear of tension makes her angle forwards a little. Yes. I examine her tight posture and the slight knot to her brow, but say nothing else. Anything else? The Chamber rarely gets involved in the affairs of each facility. They only come together when there is something of great importance to attend to. Otherwise, the agency is governed mostly by themselves, according to how each facility feels it is best for their agents. Then why have the Chamber at all? She shrugs. Tradition, but they deal out justice in any cases that are deemed of a higher need, and they also make decisions that affect the organization as a whole. She shakes her head. Though that hasn't been necessary for years. We soon turn onto the now familiar track leading to the concealed entrance of the facility. Rebecca pulls up outside and we both get out, heading towards the thick door which swings open as we approach. A chill envelops me as we descend into the curving tunnels. Concrete and industrial metals now surround us rather than the lush woods we'd been in not moments before. Rebecca leads me past rooms I've grown used to seeing and down a side passage I'd not noticed before. The shadows grow deeper as the tunnel narrows, seeming to squeeze the air out of the space, and I try to keep my breath steady. At the end of the narrow, dark pathway is a single door, looking out of place amongst the plain metal green ones that dot the other hallways. This one door is embedded with the agency's shield and moon symbol gleaming in silver. The heaviness of the weathered wood almost seems to bow outwards with the strength of whatever lies within. They're waiting for you. Oh, that's a guard. They're waiting for you. A guard comments as she grabs for the intricate knotted handle. My mother turns to me with brows raised in expectation, so I... Sure. I'm not sure what's behind that door, but after everything else I've gone through since finding out about the supernatural, it's not going to be boring, that's for sure. With a smile, I give a nod towards the guard. I'm ready. She twists the handle, which groans in protest, and a sliver of light casts across us from the room inside. The guard steps aside. After you. And so we enter into the candlelit depths of the chamber. Once my eyes adjust to the dim light, I notice the ornate wall sconces? What are sconces? Aren't candles at all, but electric, though they seem to be the only modern thing about this whole room. The walls are rough hewn stone blocks, the floor not much better, only a simple maroon rug helps hide the cracks wounding the stony surface. The entire circular area can only be 20 feet from one side to the other, but 5 chairs have been crammed onto a small... What? Days? What is a days? What is... Okay. At the far end opposite us. Well, they would be chairs if their grandeur didn't put them more into the category of thrones. Each seat is different. One is made of stone with rough crystals set along its edges, another is almost dusty with silken webs clinging to its uneven edges and glimmering in the dim light. The third is sturdy, with a seat that resembles a tree stump more than a chair. The fourth is sleek and modern in gleaming silver, and the fifth looks like a throne you'd see from a fairy book. Four of the chairs are filled, but the fifth throne-like seat is empty. It's difficult to make a quick examination of everything with the light so low, but the four occupants of the seats politely wait until I'm through. The man in the middle seat smiles brightly at me when I meet his gaze. So you're the human? There's a strange air of casualness about the four members of the chamber as they laze in their chairs and inspect me. It's a stark contrast to the medieval style setting we're in, especially as most of the people in front of me are dressed in suits or business attire. We've been very eager to meet you, the man continues, standing up and stepping down from the dais in order to glide towards me. He's incredibly tall and incredibly slender. His clothing seems to perch on his bony shoulders, but it's his eyes that draw most of my focus. They seem far too large for his angular features, and I'm surprised when he flutters his lashes at me, that I'm not blown away by the gust their thick lengths must create. His hand, the color and texture of tree bark, extend towards me in what I assume is a greeting. Yes. I take his hand while giving a polite nod, not saying too much or giving too much away, but also not attempting to hold back. Neutral is probably the safest course here until I know more. It's good to meet you, I say. The man's delicately curled eyebrows shift upwards before the corners of his mouth crinkle into deep lines as he smiles. I hope it remains that way. I try not to falter at the comment. I suppose we should introduce ourselves if He stumbles on the words, though it seems more purposeful than accidental, and brushes back the iridescent silk that flows out of his tall, intricately weaved headdress. I mean, Agent Langford hasn't already done so on our behalf. She shakes her head, seeming unfazed by his apparent slip-up, keeping her hands folded in front of herself in a guarded pose. I am chamber member Sanaa, the man says, bowing low so that his flowing sleeves and attire pull at his feet like piles of leaves. When he stands, I swear I almost hear the creak of wood. He half turns on the spot to extend a hand out towards the woman in the first chair. This is chamber member Rogan. I'm surprised the woman fits into the room with us. She strikes a physically imposing figure as she sits with a thickly muscled leg crossed over the other on her stone throne, the crystals flashing like spotlights around her. Her grey suit strains at the seams as she leans her forearm on her thigh, angling towards me. A mane of shaggy, mousy brown hair falls around her solid shoulders at the motion. I'm an ogre. That voice doesn't fit at all, but sure, she states plainly before leaning back with her hands behind her head. I know you are wondering. That doesn't fit either. I don't know what an ogre is supposed to sound like in my head, but not that. How to make enemies 101. Yes. I offer a nod along with a smile. I've seen too much to be concerned by her statement at this point. It's good to meet you, I reply. She stares at me down her broad nose for a long while before huffing a breath. That's it. Not everyone is going to be shocked by your revelation, Member Rogan, Sanaa says through a sigh. As much as you always enjoy the reaction. That part is mumbled. Sanaa extends an arm out towards the two remaining people, stopping at the one sat in the modern silver seat. Everything about them is stark and sharp. A frizz of tightly curled blue-black hair fluffs around their deep brown face, which is glowing with the light of an electronic tablet that sat on their lap. They offer me the quickest glance through rich brown eyes before focusing back on the tablet. Sanaa clears his throat, obviously waiting for them to make their own introduction. They say nothing, but they do shift a little, unbuttoning the striped navy suit jacket they wear. And I guess I would say they are the human of the group. Power still exudes from them, but it's of a different kind. More like a CEO power than a shoot lightning from her fingertips kind of power. We're not introducing ourselves first, no. When nothing but silence greets me, I plant myself firmer to the spot and fold my arms. I'm certainly not going to be the one to give in first when they already know who I am. Their dark gaze eventually slides to me, leaving a chill wake in its path, but I remain unmoving. My name is Sakita. They finally say with a voice hoarse enough that it makes me wonder if they use it much at all. I give a slight incline of my head, but they've already turned their attention back to the tablet in their lap in apparent annoyance at losing the battle of wills, though it's not as though they tried very hard to win it. I apologize, Jules. We're the ones who called you to meet with us, and some of us are giving the expression that we don't even want you here, Sanar states, sliding his tight gaze across the others. What are you glaring at me for? The only one not yet introduced protests. You're the one who decided to leave the best until last. Sanar's mouth crinkles, making me think he certainly doesn't agree with that statement. Of course, Chamber Member Arane? How remiss of me, Sanar states with a tight smile. I lean around Sanar's thin frame to watch as the man almost slithers off of the dark seat. The webs seem to respond to his movement by shivering, the motions growing more frantic with each step he takes towards me. He's surprisingly muscular for someone who moves with such agile, skittish steps. A deep russet suit hugs his solid frame, glints of silver metal embellished at the sleeves in color. As he draws to a stop in front of me, I tip my head down to meet his gaze, his amber-brown skin glowing with warmth even in this dimness. For someone a little shorter than myself, he holds a surprising presence, his shadow stretching over me and seeming to meld into my own. His solid black eyes blink slowly at me. You smell incredibly unique, human, but something more. There's no menace to the statement, more something akin to strange curiosity. He continues to blink at me as though trying to take me all in, pinching at the ends of his styled back dark brown hair. Hmm. Hmm. Sure. Oh, I mumble, struggling to hold a smile at the strange statement. Thanks. His lips break into a broad, delighted smile that makes my eyes sparkle. You're most welcome. It must be delightful being so special, mi amigo. My uncertainty fades at his sudden genial mood, even more so as he leans away and takes a step back, allowing me some space again. Not always quite as delightful as you'd think, I admit, but still so fascinating, he comments in a wistful tone, reaching out to draw a long finger down my arm. Sana knocks his hand away. They're not a project, Arane. Arane seems to shake himself out of some kind of reverie, and he clears his throat, relaxing into his warm smile from before. Of course not. I apologize. He bows at me. I mold my own smile into something I hope is polite. I assume you have been told about who we are, what we do. Sana interrupts, obviously trying to turn the conversation back on course. Arane skitters back to his seat, twisting to sit in it with limbs spread across it. The webs have settled down too. I draw my gaze away and turn it on the tall man beside me, giving a nod. Though I was told there were 5 of you originally, the temperature seems to shift a degree down as I speak. 5 chairs, I continue when no one says a word. Only 4 people. Yes, Sanaa's head twists almost unnaturally far to gaze at the seed, with a sadness misting across his features. That departure was particularly wounding to our group, even if it was for an understandable reason. He turns back to face me. No, not me, my mother. He smiles, the expression tight and not reaching his eyes. But you're always welcome to retake it if you're so inclined, my dearest Rebecca. Yours has been a vacancy that's been impossible to fill. I stare blankly for a moment before managing to force my body past the shock of this revelation. I mean, at this point, really, you should have realized once they entered the room. All right. Hmm. A smile lifts one side of my lips as I turn from Rebecca to Sanaa. So does being the child of a former chamber member get me anything? Rogan barks a laugh. You mean apart from a crapload of high expectations placed on you? Well, yeah, I reply, feeling a sudden pressure on my shoulders that hadn't been there a moment before. Sanaa shakes his head. No, it does not. It doesn't work that way within our agency. You gain status based on your own merits. But you've had some already, Arane adds. The weight lifts with a bloom of pride at that. Should continue with the meeting, Rebecca interrupts, stiffening on the spot and drawing her hands behind herself. Oh, yes, of course, he stammers. Finally, Rogan groans with a roll of her eyes. Sana glides back towards his seat and takes it, spreading his long forearms against the arms of the chair. I believe we really can no longer delay such a thing. The heavy tone to his voice doesn't fill me with confidence. Our meeting here was originally just to make an introduction with you, Jules, Sana assures me with a soft voice, but the edges of his mouth pinch down. But we have recently come to learn of a development that needs our utmost attention. I frown. Involving me? Unfortunately, yes, he states. My brain begins to file through recent events, wondering what could possibly have happened to draw their attention. My gaze shifts over my shoulder to Rebecca, who gives me a confused shake of her head to let me know she wasn't expecting this either. We've been informed that someone of your knowing has become aware of our presence, Sana explains in a calm voice. Panic seizes in my chest, my lungs seeming to crush against my constricting ribs. One Dr. Solomon Verda of the Wayhaven Police Department, I believe. Sana continues as they're not noticing the alarm that must be showing on my face. Oh shit. Rogan leans forward with a wide-toothed grin and wags a finger at me as though I'm a naughty child. You've been spilling secrets, human. Sure, let's go with that. My shoulders droop as I take a step forwards as though about to make my case. I've got an almost seal of approval from Farah about him. I tip my palms up with a slight shrug. Isn't that enough? Farah takes a liking to almost everyone, Arane comments while tapping his sharp nails against the arm of his chair. I rub my neck. Well, yeah, I suppose you're right about that. Sana waves a hand to catch my attention, offering a surprisingly warm smile. Approval is not needed by Agent Hovell or by us for now. We only care to deal with the fact that it has happened, not how it did. A snort from Sakita makes me wonder if not focusing on the how was a unilateral decision. Sana continues. There are reasons people from the general public are not made aware of our existence. I'm not overly keen on the way he frames the statement so tensely. But we also realize that this person is important to you. Arana tilts forwards with a nod in my direction. You are ever so important to us. So, we want to find a way to allow this to continue. To give you that confidence outside of the agency. Sana concludes as though he has rehearsed the speech. Well, that's not what I was expecting. When none of them say anything more, I shrug. Do you have a suggestion? Arana slides forwards on his seat with an eager smile. Your friend is a scientist, isn't he? I frown but give a slow nod. We're always keen for new blood to add to our research teams, he says, and I suddenly understand where this conversation is headed. You want to offer him a job? It's not a bad idea. He certainly has the qualifications and mind for it, but his reaction to all of this so far. Sakita spreads their hands, a shimmer in the air arcing out from them as they do. You think of a better place to ensure he does not spread our secret. Hmm. Well, do I? Wait, I wanted to look at that. Okay, there's no stats for something like convincing them of anything. Um, well, we'll go with that anyway. You wouldn't spill any secrets. I protest with a strong shake of my head. No matter if he's here or still working at the station. Aranis sits back. But we only have your word on that, don't we? Dr. Verda would be a wonderfully welcome addition to our team. Sana explains, but the words are tense. And that would enable the agency to provide protection for him from anyone looking to use him against you. My throat tightens. I hadn't thought of that. But whether this would work for both parties is not yet clear, he continues before nodding his head at me. You could help secure that path for him. Or leave us to find an alternative solution, Sakita offers while steepling their fingers together. The room falls quiet at that, but as they all begin to stand in unison, it's apparent the meeting is over. It was a true pleasure to meet you today, Jules, Sana says with a slight bow. I'm most eager to see where your path with us leads, and if you'll become as much of a pillar to our agency as your mother. Rebecca barely reacts, except for a slight clench of her fists. See ya. Um, hmm, sure, polite. I try my best to brush away everything that's just been said, forming a smile on my face and giving a nod in return. It was good to meet you too. Sanaa's own smile brightens further at my reply before I turn away and follow my mother out of the room. The door clangs shut tightly behind us, the echo of it trailing us down the shadowy hallway as we go. In the cafeteria. Here. A drink is pushed beneath my nose, and I glance up at Rebecca as she takes the bench opposite me at the table. Thanks, I mutter, my mind reeling over what just went down, as well as yet more revelations about my mother. Does everyone know more about her than me? You handled things well in there, she comments, sipping at her own mug. Her eyes fall shut for the briefest moment, as though a second is all she will allow herself to enjoy the taste. But her evaluation isn't what I'm interested in presently. Why didn't you tell me you were part of the chamber? I ask bluntly. She sighs, the steam from her drink dissolving before reforming into a mist in front of her face. Slowly, she places down her cup, apparently needing the time to think of how to reply. Because it's a time of my life I try to forget, she explains. I shake my head as confusion grips me. You didn't enjoy it? Oh, quite the opposite, she replies, with a smile even sneaking into the words. I loved every minute of it. It was as though I was born to take that role. I wrap my hands around my mug, leaning my elbows on the table to angle closer to her. Then why did you leave? Her expression breaks. Because Brooke died. Her words make me lean back with a nod. Oh. She circles the wooden stirrer in her mug as she stares down into the revolving liquid. I lost myself for a while. I was barely in a position to think for myself, let alone make decisions that would affect so many other people. Sounds like they've valued you, I comment. Wouldn't they have given you time? She nods but still doesn't meet my eye. They would have, but stepping back into that role would have brought back too many memories. Her gaze flicks up, and it would have taken me away from you even more than my current position. Hmm, I'll go with that. Why not go back to the position now? I suggest with an eager smile. They certainly seemed keen to have you back. She gives a sharp shake of her head. No, if I did that, my time would be completely taken again. A weak smile just about manages to lift her lips. And I value any time I have with you now too much to give it up. Her time would be completely taken again, after she clearly stated earlier while driving there that they basically do nothing much at all. Hmm. It's so strange. The Rebecca I see now is nothing like the mother I knew. She's trying, I can tell that, but for so long she was strict, formal, unyielding. Now I meet her wide eyes, so honest and filled with painful memories, I can barely hold her gaze. It makes my own heart ache. She's letting me see her. Hmm. Or maybe this is just another mask she's trying out. Uh, sure, let's go with that. I really appreciate her allowing me to see this more vulnerable side of her. It's probably what's helped keep our relationship as strong as it's always been. Hopefully, she's not hiding anything else. I shake my head to try to rid myself of the suddenly heavy thought, though the ache still lingers. Rubbing at the side of my head in small circles, I figure a change of subject is probably a good idea. So, did you meet Unit Bravo through being a chamber member? Her expression slowly tenses back into its usual work focused mask. No, that came after. When I left the chamber, I chose to become a handler. You choose Unit Bravo too? What was just a change of subject is suddenly drawing out my full curiosity. In a way, we found each other. She rubs her hands together before laying them gracefully on the tabletop. Unit Bravo had just lost their previous handler. There was an opening. We ended up just falling together because of it. I snort out a breath. That's not quite the story I was expecting. Everything involving Unit Bravo usually is a lot more dramatic. She laughs, but it's more strained than expected. Then you wouldn't be disappointed in how that opening came to be. My brows shoot up. Really? Her mouth opens, but the sound that comes out is not what I'm expecting. It takes me a moment to realize that ringing is from her phone, not from her. A second later, my own phone begins to buzz urgently in my pocket. Ava, is everything all right? I ask as tension seizes my throat. The tightness only worsens as Rebecca's expression drains at whatever news she's just received. No, she states plainly. There's another kidnapping in progress. I fall against the table as my body rocks. Are you serious? Very much so. I'll send you the coordinates and we shall meet you there. She hangs up. A moment later, and my phone peeps with the promised location, and I'm up out of my seat, about to rush to the exit. Jules! My mother's voice echoes around the open space. I spin around just in time to snatch up the keys from the air that she throws my way. I'll stay here and try to find out what information I can. She pauses and draws in a breath before ordering. Be safe. I grip the SUV keys tightly in my grasp and give a final nod before running out of the cafeteria hall. Next chapter.